Gyeongju, a city that holds 1,000 years of history. The cherished values, preserved over time, have shaped who we are today. Now, through new encounters, we step into a better future. Sustainability, innovation. With the spirit of connection, a new millennium story begins. As APEC and Gyeongju come together. APEC meets Gyeongju.
The moment we wear it, our spirits lift. It helps us grow strong, in body and in mind. As we wear it, we learn patience and respect. The belt system motivates students to strive harder and continue growing. This uniform shapes movement into grace and turns performance into something thrilling. Now, embraced around the world, Taekwondo shares our culture, philosophy, and values with pride and spirit. Though it may seem simple, this uniform holds your passion and your journey. It belongs to Taekwondo. Wear the extraordinary. Be with Taekwondo.
The leaders of South Korea and Turkiye held their first summit in Ankara on Monday, where the two sides agreed to further consolidate their cooperation in the fields of defense, nuclear energy, biohealth, and infrastructure. With just 2 days to go before liftoff, South Korea's homegrown launch vehicle Nuri is now successfully erected on the launch pad, all ready for its fourth launch on early Thursday. Consumer sentiment here in the country hit an 8-year high in the month of November on the back of the end of Seoul-Washington trade negotiations and a stronger than expected GDP growth in the third quarter. We begin with the deals sealed during summit talks between the leaders of South Korea and Turkey in Ankara. Topping their newest agreements were tighter cooperation on the defense industry, nuclear energy, and biohealth. Our President Office correspondent Yoon Jung-min leads us tonight.
The South Korean leader was officially welcomed by his Turkish counterpart on Monday at the presidential palace in Ankara. An amicable mood and friendship were prominent.
튀르키예의 한국 전쟁 참전 75주년이자 저의 대통령 취임 첫 해인 올해 피를 나눈 형제의 나라 튀르키예를 방문하게 돼서 매우 뜻깊게 생각합니다.
I believe your state visit this time consolidated the strong bond and solidarity between Turkey and South Korea.
President Lee Jae-myung is the first South Korean leader in 13 years to travel to Turkey for a state visit. His talks with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan lasted for nearly 2 hours and yielded deliverables to bolster strategic partnership, including in the defense industry.
양국이 방산 강국 도약을 위해서 노력하는 과정에서 상호 신뢰를 바탕으로 공동 생산, 기술 협력, 훈련, 교류 등에 있어 협력을 지속해 나가기로 약속했습니다.
We have worked on many key joint projects with Korea when it comes to the arms industry, such as the Altay main battle tank project. We hope to diversify cooperation.
Also discussed was nuclear energy cooperation to support Korea's bid for a new nuclear power plant project in Turkey, with the evaluation process in the works. In line with that, an MOU was signed. The two leaders also discussed cooperation in biohealth, noting Korean firm SK Plasma taking part in a blood product project in Türkiye. Other areas of focus were cooperation on infrastructure, AI, and culture, as well as the resumption of a joint economic committee between the two countries. Also addressed war regional security.
우리의 대북 정책에 대한 에르도안 대통령님과 튀르키예 정부의 일관된 지지에 각별히 감사 말씀을 드립니다.
He also vowed to bolster Korea's humanitarian assistance to help resolve issues regarding Syrian refugees in Turkey.
I welcome South Korea's establishment of its diplomatic ties with Syria in April. I believe we can cooperate regarding various regions, including Syria, Gaza, and the rebuilding of Ukraine.
President Lee's two-day state visit to Turkey began with him paying tribute to the founder of Turkey, the late Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, earlier in the day. President Lee is set to return home, wrapping up his first trip to the Middle East and Africa that lasted for 10 days, aimed at expanding South Korea's diplomatic horizon. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, Ankara.
Staying in Turkey, President Lee Jae-myung paid tribute to Turkish veterans of the Korean War on Tuesday morning. President Lee and First Lady Kim Hye-kyung visited a memorial tower in Ankara engraved with the names of the troops. The president laid a wreath at the base of the tower and observed a moment of silence. The memorial was donated by the South Korean government in 1973 and underwent a full restoration last year by Hyundai Motor Company. After the ceremony, the first couple met with the surviving veterans and families of the soldiers who lost their lives. Turkey has sent the fourth largest number of troops during the Korean War. Now, President Lee will wrap up his two-day state visit to Turkey by meeting with members of the Korean community in the afternoon. Shifting gears, we are now just over a day away from the launch of the fully made in Korea Nuri rocket. Final preparations are in full swing for what people hope be a successful mission. For the latest from the launch site, we go live to our Park Konu in Gyeongju County. Konu, good to have you with us. First, what are the conditions like on the ground as of today?
Tommy, the weather here near the Narrow Space Center in Gyeongju County in Jeollando Province, the southwest part of the country, is generally fine, but except that it's super cold right now due to strong winds, and my laptop nearly blew away. I'm not even joking. Then the rain has stopped, but again the winds remain gusty with a strong wind advisory still taking place. And just to give you a bit more context about this site, this is where many of the Korea's major rocket launch projects have been carried out even before the Nuri project.
Right, Konu, hopefully the wind will be calmer tomorrow as wind plays as a huge variable in this launch. Now, I'm wondering how smoothly the process is going.
So at the moment, most procedures are running pretty smoothly, I must say, despite the severe weather. And before 2 p.m. Korea time, the Nuri rocket was erected and secured in place so that it remains stable even under strong winds. And that comes after a delay of about 1.5 hours earlier this morning due to unexpected rain and also once again strong winds. And the rocket was transported to the launch pad by a transporter, an unmanned special purpose vehicle, to minimize any shock which could pose a risk to the launch mission. And the transporter moves at a speed of about 1.5 kilometers per hour, roughly the walking pace of a person. The rocket is currently in the process of being connected to the umbilical system, which supplies fuel and oxidizer ahead of launch. Engineers will also conduct further checks to ensure there are no blockages or leakage points in the system until late tonight. However, it's still worth pointing out that this process could be postponed to tomorrow morning due to weather conditions, but officials say there's no more need to worry as there's still sufficient time before the scheduled launch on Thursday.
So, Konu, if I'm not wrong, we are less than 30 hours away from the fourth launch of Nuri. Now, other than the weather variables, what are the remaining final procedures for tomorrow's launch?
That's right. So there will be a comprehensive inspection focusing mainly on the fueling system and electrical components. The actual loading of fuel and oxidizer will begin 4 hours prior to the actual liftoff. And as of now, the estimated launch window is between 12:54 and 1:14 a.m. on Thursday. And the exact launch time will be finalized tomorrow evening at around 8 p.m. after the Launch Management Committee reviews weather conditions, the possibility of collision with space objects, and the overall readiness of the rocket. And there are also backup dates running through December 4th in case of bad weather conditions.
And expectations continue to rise for the launch. Now, what are some of the key points to watch for in the fourth mission then?
Yeah, so for this Nuri rocket mission, this will be the first nighttime launch, offering the best conditions to observe natural light displays, what we call auroras. And the rocket will also carry a total of 13 satellites, up from the previous 7 carried in the launch that was set 2.5 years ago. And as the manufacturing of this fourth vehicle was led entirely by the private company Hana Aerospace, this can mark a major milestone in the transfer of technology and a shift toward a private sector-driven launch system. And that's all I have for you now. Back to you, Dami.
All right, Konu, thanks for the coverage. Do keep us posted throughout tomorrow. Now, in other news, on the back of the country's tariff negotiations agreement with the U.S. and robust third-quarter economic growth, South Korea's consumer sentiment marked the highest reading in 8 years. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
South Korea's consumer sentiment rose to an 8-year high in November, boosted by the end to Korea-U.S. tariff negotiations and stronger than expected third-quarter GDP growth. According to a survey by the Bank of Korea, the Composite Consumer Sentiment Index climbed to 112.4 this month, up 2.6 points from the previous month. The index had fallen for 2 straight months in September and October, but turned upward for the first time in 3 months, reaching its highest level in 8 years since November 2017. The index reflects consumers' overall perception of economic conditions based on 6 key factors, including expected household income, future living conditions, and future economic outlook. A reading above 100 indicates optimism, while below 100 signals pessimism. Among 6 sub-indices, the outlook for future economic conditions posted the biggest increase, rising 8 points from the previous month. The assessment of current economic conditions climbed 5 points, while expectations for future household income and future living conditions rose 2 and 1 points respectively. Regarding the index, an official from the Bank of Korea said the increase was mainly due to the tariff agreement with the U.S. and the third-quarter gross domestic product growth exceeding expectations. In the July-September period, real gross domestic product, a key gauge of economic growth, rose 1.2% from the previous quarter. The official added that the index fell sharply after the martial law situation, and as uncertainties such as U.S. tariffs were gradually resolved, it rose significantly due to a base effect. Meanwhile, the house price outlook index was at 119, falling by 3 points compared to October. Though it turned to a downtrend, it still remains higher than that in July, which was at 109 after the June 27th real estate measures. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi spoke to U.S. President Donald Trump on the phone on Tuesday. The call came at President Trump's request, and the two leaders reportedly addressed a wide range of mutual interests, including their alliance and the challenges within the Indo-Pacific region. Now, according to the Japanese Prime Minister, Mr. Trump also touched upon the current state of U.S.-China relations. She, however, did not reveal whether or not Tokyo's ongoing diplomatic feud with Beijing was discussed. And just hours before the Trump-Takaichi phone talks, Trump held talks with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping, in which Trump said he agreed to visit Beijing in April and that he's invited China's Xi for a state visit later next year. Lee Seung-ja's more.
U.S. President Donald Trump announced that he has accepted an invitation from Chinese President Xi Jinping to visit Beijing in April. The White House confirmed that the offer was made during a telephone call between the two leaders on Monday morning, where they discussed a wide range of bilateral issues and ongoing geopolitical challenges. Among the topics were China's subdued purchases of American soybeans, the war in Ukraine, and rising tensions over Taiwan. The latest call comes several weeks after the two leaders held a summit in South Korea. In a social media post following Monday's call, President Trump described the conversation as productive, saying the two leaders addressed China's exports of chemicals used in fentanyl production, progress on farm imports, and cooperation on the war in Ukraine. He said both sides had made meaningful progress since their summit in South Korea, and added now was the time to set sights on the big picture. The Chinese government also released its account of the call. State media reported that President Xi urged both nations to preserve what he described as the positive momentum achieved in South Korea. Beijing emphasized that the Ukraine conflict remains a priority and said that China is seeking further communication with Washington on international security concerns. The Chinese readout also contained stronger language on Taiwan. According to Beijing, President Xi stressed that China views Taiwan's return as an essential component of the post-war international order and reiterated that Beijing expects Washington to respect what it describes as China's core interests. President Trump has previously said that Taiwan was not discussed during the South Korea summit, but White House officials have yet to clarify whether it was raised during Monday's call. Meanwhile, as part of that diplomatic push, President Trump also confirmed that he has invited President Xi for a formal state visit to the United States. Both visits are expected to frame the next phase in the effort to restore more predictable relations between the world's two largest economies. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Following Sunday's meeting in Geneva, U.S. and Ukrainian officials say they have now reworked the original peace proposal into what both sides describe as a refined framework. The White House says only a couple of disagreements remain, while President Donald Trump signaled that something good just may be happening. Pyongyang reports.
U.S. and Ukrainian officials have reworked a peace proposal following talks in Geneva on ending the war in Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Monday the updated plan now includes correct elements and that the list of steps to end the war has become more workable. But he stressed that the most sensitive issues, including long-term security guarantees, will be handled directly with Washington.
As of now, after Geneva, there are fewer points, no longer 28, and many proper elements have been incorporated into this framework. There is still a lot for all of us to work on together. It's very difficult to finalize the document, and we must do everything properly.
The revisions follow pushback from European allies, who drew up their own counter-proposal after rejecting elements seen as favoring Russia. Those amendments were quickly dismissed by Moscow as completely unconstructive. At the White House, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt emphasized that Washington is engaging both sides equally and that most points in the U.S. draft have already been agreed upon in Kiev.
Everybody inside feels optimistic about what happened and transpired yesterday in Geneva. Secretary Rubio, Special Envoy Witkoff, the whole team really worked through the points of that 28-point peace plan that the United States authored with input from both sides, the Russians and the Ukrainians.
Meanwhile, negotiations are taking place against a tense backdrop. A massive drone strike on Kharkiv killed 4 people over the weekend, while a Ukrainian drone attack near Moscow knocked out power for thousands. European leaders say more work is needed and that they will meet again this week to coordinate their position. Kiev and Washington expect further revisions in the coming days as they push toward a just and lasting peace. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
The APEC CEO Summit, an official side event of the APEC Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Leaders meeting in Gyeongju held in October, set a record for the largest number of participants in its history. The Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry announced on Tuesday that a total of 2,224 participants attended the summit. The forum featured 12 heads of state and government leaders, 67 business leaders, and 1,852 executives from 713 companies. The number of visitors to Gyeongju also significantly increased after the APEC event, reaching 5,896,309, a 23% increase compared to the same period last year. As we head towards the end of the year, the National Assembly is readying to wrap up some of its major issues, including a plenary session and a committee meeting on the country's 2026 budget review. For more, we have our political correspondent An Sung-jin here in the studio. Welcome, Sung-jin.
Great to be here, Dami.
So, Sung-jin, this week seems to be like a busy one at the National Assembly. Let's go over what it's dealing with by step. Starting with the plenary session on Thursday, what are some of the key points that are set to be discussed?
Right, so a variety of issues are to be discussed, some of which have already been agreed upon by both the ruling and the main opposition party. Now, for instance, the K-Steel Act has been adopted as an official policy by both parties as it was swiftly cleared through the relevant parliamentary committees. Now, this bill is designed to support the domestic steel industry amid challenges such as steep U.S. tariffs and global oversupply. It calls for establishing a presidential special committee to draw up a 5-year basic plan and prepare measures to strengthen the steel sector, including tax and financial support for low-carbon steelmaking technologies. Now, this act is most likely to receive final approval in this plenary session in the upcoming Thursday session. Similarly, by bipartisan agreement, lawmakers also approved the special act on strengthening and supporting the competitiveness of the petrochemical industry through the Petrochemical Support Act. Now, this bill includes provisions for financial and policy support for corporate restructuring, regulatory exemptions for the petrochemical sector, and programs to cultivate specialized talent through training. This act also comes amid an industry facing global supply problems, particularly involving China, as well as volatile raw material prices and sluggish demand. However, there will be a contentious issue that has been stirring up tension within and between both parties. Now, heightened tension surrounds the motion to arrest former PPP floor leader Chu Gyeong-ho. Chu is facing charges of obstructing the assembly vote to lift the martial law declaration back on December 3rd last year. The motion for arrest had been submitted earlier, and the vote on it will take place at the plenary session on Thursday, with Chu stating that he will waive his assembly immunity from arrest. So the plenary session is looking to be a busy one with ample bills to go through.
Right, and the Assembly is also looking at South Korea's 2026 budget. And Sung-jin, this Friday, there's another meeting set. Now, what can we expect to happen from that meeting?
Right, so we are exactly about a week away from the country's deadline of the 2026 budget. Now, that being said, the ruling party will hold a committee meeting on Friday to ensure that the budget is finalized on time. The Special Committee on Budgets and Accounts has been reviewing the 2026 budget through full sessions and subcommittee meetings through last week. And this week, a so-called small subcommittee will be convened and composed of a chair, ruling and opposition party secretaries, and the second vice minister of the finance ministry. Now, the DP members of the committee held a press conference on Monday saying that it was necessary to ensure that the budget review serves the public rather than the political strife, and urged the PPP to cooperate constructively.
We will quickly resolve all issues and finalize the budget within the statutory deadline by approving it at the plenary session. Most of the 728 trillion won budget has already been adjusted, and the remaining part is deciding on the core projects.
However, the PPP denounced the budget proposal and instead noted that they would compile a true budget for the people's livelihood, consisting of projects which include financial support such as special home ownership loans for those in their 20s and 30s.
The budget plan is an irresponsible one that focuses only on cash injections and funding investment projects while rapidly increasing the national debt without presenting an economic development model.
With the deadline of the budget proposal imminent, the two parties will have to reach a consensus, which we expect to see by the end of this week.
Right, looks like we'll have to keep a close eye on it to see how that evolves over the next week. Sung-jin, thanks for coming in tonight.
Thank you for having me, Dami.
A heavy snow advisory was issued in Gangwon-do province due to low temperatures with more than 5 centimeters of snow falling. In addition, with bad levels of ultrafine dust, rain mixed with yellow dust has fallen around the country. In the meantime, around the Gohung area where the Nara Space Center is located, a strong wind advisory is in place. It was hard to carry out work with gusty winds. However, on Thursday, when Nuri is scheduled to launch, no major disruption regarding the weather are expected. Tomorrow morning's temperature in Seoul, Chuncheon, and Gyeongju will plunge to 2 degrees Celsius, Daejeon at 3 degrees. Highs will be similar to today's at 12 degrees in Daejeon and Gyeongju, 10 degrees in Chuncheon. Rain is forecast again on Thursday, and severe cold is expected in the second half of this week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.
The magical door to the world of K-animation is swinging wide open. Meet your instant new BFF, the adorable Catch. Tina Ping will have you hooked from the very first glance. Need a hand? Our Robocar Poli Rescue team is always zooming in to save the day. How about tagging along on Pinkfong and Pal's super exciting quest to reclaim their lost magic? With the mysterious life forms Kabion by your side, you can become a Kabion master and save humanity like a total hero. Protecting children's innocence while igniting their boundless imaginations. That's the magic of Korean animation. K-animation, the ultimate bestie for kids worldwide.
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gyeon. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung's state visit to Turkey was the final stop in his Middle East and Africa tour, coming just after the G20 summit. Framed as a push for strategic economic diplomacy, the visit focused on deepening ties in defense, infrastructure, and renewable energy. With Turkey hosting COP31 and positioning itself as a regional economic hub, the summit signaled growing alignment between Seoul and Ankara. Today, we take a closer look at the outcomes of the visit and where this evolving partnership may be headed next. For a deeper discussion on this, we're joined by Taha Saran, the Korea Country Director of the Investment and Finance Office of the Presidency of the Republic of Turkey and founding board member of the Turkish Chamber of Commerce in Korea. A big welcome.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us tonight. So let's first begin with President Lee's visit to Turkey. This actually came at a very crucial moment of regional alignment. So from your perspective, why do you think Turkey was actually chosen as a key stop in Korea's broader Middle East Africa outreach?
I would like to start by saying that this visit comes at a very meaningful time. The last presidential bilateral visit from Korea to Turkey took place back in 2012 when then President Lee Myung-bak visited Ankara. And after 13 years today, the President Lee Jae-myung visit carries a special significance because, as you mentioned, that there's a regional realignment taking place in our geography, and Turkey is right at the center of it. And I don't mean that only geographically, but also economically, politically, and strategically. Turkey today stands out with the largest economy, the second largest population, and one of the largest and strongest industrial and export bases in the entire region. And we have also become one of the most, if not the most, influential regional powers, shaping developments not only in our neighborhood, but also in the countries and areas such as the Ukraine, Syria, Gaza, Sudan, Libya, and beyond. So we can say that Turkey now plays a leading role, taking bold initiatives, mediating conflicts, and driving humanitarian efforts that truly have an impact on the ground. So economically, as I said, it offers one of the largest and fastest growing markets in the region, and also serves as a strategic hub for trade, for energy, for investments, connecting Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. So I believe that President Lee and his administration clearly recognize the importance of Turkey and what it means for Korea and its wider engagement with the region as a whole. So that's exactly why I believe that Turkey was chosen as one of the key stops during this visit.
Thank you for giving us the background of why we think Turkey was actually prioritized in this tour. So now let's talk about outcomes, Mr. Saran. There were some key economic derivables, I believe, from the summit. What were the notable MOUs or agreements for you?
Yes, in fact, there were some concrete outcomes of this visit. There were 6 agreements that were signed, covering areas such as energy, infrastructure, and even social and veterans affairs. Among the more strategic ones, maybe to mention, was the Nuclear Energy Cooperation Agreement that was signed between Turkey's state nuclear company, TÜNAŞ, and its Korean counterpart, KEPCO. And another important one was about infrastructure cooperation with Turkey's Ministry of Transport and Korea's highway and overseas infrastructure agencies. And as I mentioned, there was also a memorandum signed between the social ministries of both countries in focusing on honoring the shared legacy of the Korean War, which is reinforcing the people-to-people bond that we have between the two brotherly nations. In addition, new collaboration was announced in other areas, such as renewable energy, biotech, some other advanced manufacturing, etc., which all show that we are now moving our cooperation from a more conventional, more traditional sectors into more innovation-driven industries.
Right. It does show a lot of shift from the more structured to a broader and long-term engagement between the two countries. Now, speaking of which, let's also delve into the defense cooperation sector. Defense exports and UAV collaboration reportedly have been discussed. How is Turkey actually envisioning its role as a partner to Korea in this high-tech defense ecosystems?
Turkey is now largely self-sufficient in defense industry. We now produce over 80% of our own systems domestically. And as you mentioned, especially in UAVs, we are now a global leader, accounting for almost 65% of all global drone exports, which makes us the #1 in this product segment. And these are not just numbers, I have to say. These are combat-proven systems that have gained the trust of the whole world through real applications in the real ground. And this actually gives Turkey something that very few countries have, the real field experience that turns technology into credibility.
All right, then let's move on to our next question. So now turning to Tokyo's local development plans, several major infrastructure projects are underway across Turkey, from logistic hubs to high-speed rail and smart urban networks as well. So, Mr. Saran, what kinds of opportunities could Korean companies realistically actually take from these kinds of developments?
Well, when we look at Turkey's infrastructure vision, it's one of the most ambitious in the whole region. And we are investing heavily in logistic corridors, energy routes, smart cities, highways, high railway systems, high-speed railway systems. And this is all to make Turkey one of the main gateways that's linking the West and the East. And of course, for Korean companies, this means a lot of opportunities, and our strengths fit together perfectly. Korea brings precision engineering, technology, and financing, where Turkey brings the world-class construction skills, strong regional access, and deep on-the-ground experience. So we have already seen great examples of this. Just to name a few of them, for example, the 1915 Çanakkale Bridge, which is the world's longest suspension bridge, was built by a consortium of Turkish and Korean companies. Another important example is the Eurasia Tunnel, which connects the Bosporus of the Asian and the European side under the sea in Istanbul. And maybe one more to mention is the Yavuz Sultan Selim Bridge, which is also another major bridge that connects the two continents in Istanbul, which are all made by the Korean companies. So I believe that we'll see more of these collaborations, and not just inside Turkey, but also in other regions, other countries, in places such as the Middle East, Africa, and also the Central Asia as well.
So we will look forward to more collaboration in that area moving forward. Now let's shift a little bit to energy transition. Of course, we are aware that Türkiye is preparing to host the COP31 in 2026, and it's rolling out its national hydrogen roadmap as well. What kind of opportunities do you see for Türkiye and Korea to collaborate in terms of renewables?
Turkey is moving really fast in energy transition. We have a target about 120 gigawatts of installed capacity for solar and wind. And we also have a target for 7.5 gigawatts of battery storage systems, both for the year 2035. And at the same time, our government also focuses on expanding the YEKA projects. These are projects which designated special renewable energy zones, especially for wind and solar. And these are gigawatt scale large projects, which comes with some specific benefits, such as specifically designed investment incentives, long-term government purchases, as well as streamlined permitting procedures, etc., which makes this one of the most attractive frameworks in the whole region for energy investments. And on top of that, of course, as we know from yesterday's meetings, that the nuclear energy cooperation is another important cornerstone. We know that negotiations and works are going on between Turkey and Korea for the second nuclear power plant, which is the Sinop city project in Turkey. And also we have a long-term plan to also design and develop our own SMR, the small modular reactor technologies, and we know that Korea is also very advanced at that. So I believe that when you put it all together, the technology, the market, the scale, the geography, when you look at the whole picture, I think this is a win-win situation, both Turkey and Korea, that has a real depth and momentum.
Definitely. So this energy transaction sector, it also does feel like a space where both sides are moving fast, especially with COP31 arriving. Now, from your role leading Turkey's investment outreach in Korea, how would you describe Korean investors' current appetite for Turkey? And also, could you tell us what kind of sectors do you see the most traction or more potential?
There is a clear rise of interest from Korean investors in Turkey. So far, the total FDI stock from Korea to Turkey has surpassed $4 billion. And currently we have over 400 Korean companies that are actively operating in Turkey. And so these include, just to mention a few of them, the investments from Korea to Turkey. Some big names such as Hyundai Motors, which established their first ever overseas factory in Turkey back in 1995. And ever since they've been expanding their investments in Turkey. And then also Samsung Electronics, which has a mobile phone factory and R&D center in Turkey. Other companies such as POSCO Steel, on the construction side, SK Ecoplant and Terim, as well as even CJ in entertainment. So we have many examples in a variety of industries from Korean investors, which all significantly contributed to Turkey's industrial base and exports. And now we are seeing, as I mentioned earlier, a move towards more advanced technologies rather than conventional areas. And just to name a few, again, Hyundai Motors is now planning on introducing a full electric vehicle production by next year in Turkey. Another big one is as President Lee mentioned yesterday in his speech in Turkey, the SK plasma-based production partnership. It's a huge investment also, a very critical one in Turkey. So now from our side, of course, we prioritize technologies, investments that bring technology transfer, that bring R&D, that bring global reach, contributing to our exports. And Korea is exactly that kind of partner for us. So we expect that this momentum to continue between Turkey and Korea.
So we're definitely seeing a lot of Korean investment into Turkey. But the question is, what is it in for Turkey? What does Turkey, why do you think Turkey actually also sees Korea as a valuable economic partner? And also, how does that partnership actually matter in the Middle East, Europe, and Central Asia as well?
Turkey is Korea's one of most trusted and most forward-looking partners. We share not only a long-standing friendship based on mutual history, but also a mutual vision for advanced technology and sustainable growth. For Turkey, Korea represents a partner that has advanced capabilities in areas such as mobility, semiconductors, clean energy, digital transformation, and so on, which all perfectly align with our national transformation goals under the Vision 2053, and also our green growth strategies as well. So on top of that, Turkey also has a customs union with the EU, and also about over 30 free trade agreements with other countries, including one with South Korea, which provides seamless access for Korean companies into some of the world's largest markets, totaling up to a combined of about 1.5 billion consumers. So that makes Turkey not just a major trading partner for Korea, but also a strategic base for Korean companies that want to expand into countries in the region. So in that sense, I believe that we'll see more of these collaborations in the next phase of our relationship after this official visit.
Definitely, we will be looking forward to that. Now, let's take this into the multilateral space. So, as both members of the MICTA, how do you think Turkey and South Korea could work together, not only just by the two of them, not only just bilaterally, but also with other mid-power-sized economies to shape global trade and investment moving forward?
I think both Turkey and Korea has already shown that what true middle powers can achieve when they act with vision and independence. Turkey in particular, for example, has proven that being a middle power doesn't mean watching from the sidelines. It means taking bold initiatives, stepping up, building trust, and actually shaping outcomes on the ground. We have seen this with Turkey, as I mentioned earlier, in places such as Ukraine, Syria, Gaza, and all the other countries in the region. And as President Erdogan famously said in United Nations, the world is bigger than five, referring to the five permanent members, the veto power-holding members of the UN Security Council. And this exactly covers and shows how Turkey sees its role in the region. I say, moving beyond the few and shaping the many for a fairer world. And Korea, on the other side, on the other hand, also is showing what true middle power can do. I'm sending one of the largest troops to UN peacekeeping missions, playing a leading role in the establishment of the P4G green growth platform, and even becoming the largest foreign investor in the United States last year with over $21 billion committed in a single year. And I believe that's real power and real influence, which is also the kind of leadership that gains deep respect from countries around the world. And on the multilateral space, like platforms like MICTA, Turkey and Korea have the chance to not only act bilaterally, but also as agenda-setting middle powers. And whether it's reforming global supply chains, whether it's advancing in digital transformation or opening new channels for investments in developing markets, whatever it is, I believe that we have the capacity to lead and connect. So this partnership between Turkey and Korea is not just about the two of us. It's about providing that confident, capable middle powers can actually lead with purpose in a changing global order.
Right, so let's hope for more of these proactive engagements from both sides moving forward. Now, Mr. Soran, you also serve as the board director of the Turkish Chamber of Commerce in Korea. I wonder, how are commercial ties actually between Korea and Turkish companies evolving, and how is the chamber actually working to shape those connections on the ground?
Commercial ties between commercial ties between Turkey and Korea is expanding rapidly and moving into new sectors every year. And to build on this momentum, actually, recently we established the Turkish Chamber of Commerce in Korea, shortly Turkchem Korea, to bring closer the business communities of both countries and contribute to the bilateral business and investment relations. And but I also have to mention that the trade balance between our countries remains largely in favor of Korea. We have a total about $11 billion of trade volume, about $10 billion of which is exports from Korea to Turkey, and only $1 billion from Turkey to Korea. So at Turkchem, that's why one of our main agenda is to increase Turkish exports to Korea, while encouraging more foreign direct investment from Korea to Turkey to bring a more balanced, more mutually beneficial relation. And just like other foreign chambers, we do this by organizing business networking events, joining exhibitions, and some business delegations also, connecting companies directly. And at the same time, we also act as a business feedback and a policy dialogue between the governments of two countries, as well as some NGOs and some sectoral associations, some local authorities as well. And even though Turkchem is still young, we are a growing organization, and I believe we already play a pivotal role in contributing to the bilateral relations between our countries. And I would like to warmly encourage any Korean companies that have interest in Turkey to connect with Turkchem and be a part of this growing partnership.
Right. Let's hope this partnership could also grow as a mutually beneficial one moving forward. Now, finally, before we let you go, we want to ask about your vision about, the Korea-Turkey economic cooperation in the coming 5 to even 10 years forward. What kind of sectors do you think, or platforms, could define the next chapter in its partnership?
Well, I believe looking ahead in the next 5 to 10 years, I think it will open a new chapter in Korea-Turkey relations, the one that will be centered in advanced technology, in clean energy, digital transformation, as well as next generation technologies. And at the same time, I want to mention that we also see great potential in startups and venture investments. As you know, some of the world's most valuable global companies today used to be just startups established just a few years ago. And when you look at Turkey's growing startup ecosystem, especially in areas such as fintech, gaming, and other deep tech areas, I believe that there are lots of opportunities for mutual growth between Korea and Turkey and for innovation, which actually was not much so far, performing much under our potential between our countries. From the perspective of the Investment and Finance Office of Turkey, our focus is to create a more business-friendly environment and to allow Korean companies to have easy access to investment opportunities that our country represents with a very strong institutional support. And on the Turkchem Korea side, we will continue building these networks, continue facilitating cooperation, and expanding this partnership into new sectors as much as possible. So as a final note, I'm confident that the next phase of Turkey-Korea relations will be defined by even deeper economic integration, shared innovation, and will set the stage for long-term sustainable growth together.
Right, so we will look forward to a deeper and wider cooperation between the two countries moving forward. Mr. Saran, thank you so much for your insights and for your time tonight.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.